As a nation, we grieve the loss of the 26 victims in the devastating act that took place at Sandy Hook Elementary over 6 years ago. On December 14, 2012, 20 elementary students and 6 teachers lost their lives in this vicious attack in Connecticut. What many fail to realize is the horrifying statistics that follow. Since this event in 2012, there have been over 430 victims of school shootings as of February 2018. According to a study conducted by the New York Times, the year 2014 suffered 27 victims due to school shootings in the U.S. In 2015, there were 108 more students. In 2016, another 117 people suffered. 2017 had yet another 126 casualties. Now, within the first 2 months of this year, a record 60 people suffered at the hands of these acts. If this trend were to have continued, there would have been over 300 injured due to school attacks. BBC News is now calling 2018 the worst year for U.S. school shootings. In these 5 years, 685 victims have suffered at the hands of these evil acts. That is the equivalent to 39 average high school classrooms. That is 685 empty seats. But what are we doing to solve this issue? This. I had the pleasure of meeting with 2 superintendents that had very differing views on the subject.
Brian Gearbaugh, superintendent of Milan area schools.
You have come to the conclusion that teachers shouldn't be armed in school buildings.
Correct.
I'm correct in saying you have armed teachers and staff on school property?
You would be correct.
While teachers can be trained and anyone can be trained on how to use a weapon safely, I think it's very different when you put that weapon into a school environment.
I also had the distinct pleasure of meeting with my district's state representative, Dale Zorn, and one of my state U.S. congressmen, Tim Walberg.
I believe that school districts should have the opportunity to say either they want to have armed staff or they don't want to have armed staff.
The solution or solutions that make sense for the local school district is what ought to be allowed. But I wouldn't stand in opposition to teachers being armed if it's done the right way.
We have to do things differently today than what we did when I was in school.
We've done a lot of things here to make sure that students are safe, but you've never done everything you can. So example, we've put the buzzer systems on the doors, we keep all of the perimeter doors locked. That's not to say that there aren't things we could do to improve safety.
One officer can only be in one place at a time, and it just may not be the right place at the time.
A sign that says no firearms past this point will not deter, that wouldn't deter them. But knowing that there are personnel members inside who I don't know who they are or where they are, that will exercise the right to eliminate the threat and makes it much more understandable.
Gun-free zones don't work because the criminals will never abide by a gun-free zone. And when they know there's a place like a school that is gun-free, that gives them all sorts of latitude to do whatever they want to do if they can get in.
After these interviews, I felt it necessary to dive into research on victims of these crimes. As I did so, I found myself lost in a sea of personal stories of parents and friends who had lost their loved ones to these violent acts of destruction. I read of teens who got straight A's and those struggling in school. I read of peers who sang, played football, played basketball, and swam. I read of children who run, jumped, and played, and I read of children who loved unconditionally. These stories caused great pain to my heart. Pain not only of pity, but also empathy. When I read of these victims, I got caught up in the horrifying similarity of the victims and my own loved ones. I too have friends who hunt and sing and play sports. A no firearms sign didn't stop dozens of children from dying. Why should it stop my own friends' deaths? Loss is a terrible thing, and as I look around me at my friends, I realize that something must be done to protect these people. Is arming school staff the answer? I decided to talk to my history teacher to find out what his thoughts were on protecting his students.
We all have kids. We all, as parents, lay awake at night worrying about our kids.
We have to do things differently today than what we did when I was in school.
I do like the thought of knowing that for the most part I can expect my grandkids to go to school and come home safely.
We want to do everything possible to keep our kids safe. Children and parents and educators all want and need schools to be safe sanctuaries for teaching and learning.
We need to be able to sit down and discuss it.
Students know more what's going on in your school districts than anyone else. We should be taking your ideas and your concerns very seriously.
I think there ought to be an entire smorgasbord of ideas.
I think they should have very intensive training.
In my career, I have never had anything as far as the scenario intensity in which members went through on the days that we practiced and the scenarios that you would encounter.
I have great concerns about asking my teachers to make life and death decisions.
Until we can sit down and have some authentic discussions without letting this political, chaotic noise get in the way, I don't think we're going to have any meaningful discussion.
No! This is crazy! It's so absurd on its face. It's a terrible idea. Period, full stop.
Until we can, as a society, sit down and put everything on the table, I'm a little apprehensive about our future.